Hey everyone, in this video I want to show you how I used this deer antler to make the handle for my Seax. So this is the section that I'll cut for the front part of the handle and the back part of the handle. I'll just roughly cut out the section that I need with the bandsaw. And then I'll cut that in half. And I'll trim this piece up before I take it to the milling machine. I'll mill each side perfectly flat. That way the antler will fit real nice up to the guard and the spacers. This is the part that's going to fit up to the guard. I feel like this is going to make a pretty interesting looking guard. This piece is for the back side of the handle, so I'm only going to mill one side flat, and I'll leave the bottom side curved for the pommel. I'll use this African Blackwood for the space between the antlers. That'll give me a little extra length in the handle, and it'll be a real nice palm swell. Plus the African Blackwood gives a real nice contrast to the white bone, and honestly I changed my mind on the brass. I think I like it better with the mild steel. So I traced the profile of the antler onto a 1/4 inch piece of mild steel. So I cut that out with the angle grinder and then cleaned it up with the belt grinder. I think that looks a lot nicer than the brass. I'll spray the guard with tool ink layout fluid, and then I'll mark where I want to mill a slot for the tang and the relief for the ricasso. Once I'm finished milling the slot for the tang, I'll mill the relief for the ricasso. So today I decided to make a new pommel. I thought it would be easier to bend the metal before I cut out the shape of the pommel. So I put some 1/4 inch plate in the vise and then bent it over. And now I can slide this in place until it fits really nice. Then I'll trace it out with the pencil. And I did end up sanding a little bit of the antler just to make it fit perfect. I'll start with the top piece of antler and then use the guard as a template to mark where I want to mill out the tang. And then I'll use the end mill to drill holes and then mill out the space between them. And I'll work my way down as far as I can with this end mill. And I'll do the same thing with the African Blackwood and the thin spacers between those. I'll work my way down with this end mill as far as I can, and then I switch to a 3-inch end mill. That way I can mill all the way down through the piece without having to flip it over. I'll mark the angle of the antler on the tang and the pommel. I'll mark where I'm going to thread the tang at 90 degrees from that angle. That way the pommel nut will sit flush with the angle of the pommel. I cut the majority of extra material out with the angle grinder, and then I'll cut 45-degree bevels on all 4 corners, and then I can round everything over from there. Then I can put it in the vise and thread the tang. I'll drill a hole just a little bigger than the threads on the tang so you can slip the pommel right over the threads. I'll use a small piece of round bar to make the pommel nut. So first I'll drill a hole the size I need to make the threads to match the threads on the tang. And then I'll turn it down just a little bit smaller than the end mill that I'm going to use to cut the relief for the pommel nut. I'll cut a little channel for where I'm going to drill the hole for the takedown tool. And then I'll thread the hole to match the threads on the tang. I'll drill the hole for the takedown tool and then put this piece back in the lathe and finish shaping it. I'll cut a relief in the pommel so the pommel nut will slip inside of it, and I do end up putting a lock washer in here later on. Now I can tighten the pommel nut and everything feels nice and tight together. So now I'm going to call it quits for today, and tomorrow I'll work on all the pieces. So today I'm going to start fine-tuning each of the pieces. I'll mark where the antler meets each of the spacers, that way I can grind all the spacers right up to the scribe lines. And so since all the pieces are a little bit different from each other and awkward, I make the center spacer, the palm swell, a little bit bigger than everything so there's a real nice bubble in the center. And I'll grind right up to the scribe lines at a 45-degree angle on both sides. Each side is a little different, so this will help make sure all the pieces fit up to each other even though they're awkward and don't really match. So now that that's done, I can work on all the metal pieces for the handle and shine them up to 1000 grit on the belt grinder. I start with an 80 grit and then work my way through the belts up to 1000 grit. So today I'll work on the antler pieces. I started at a 40 grit and then worked my way up to 1500 grit, and that took me all day. The antler is really tough, so it took a really long time to hand sand. So now today I hand sanded the pieces from 1500 grit to 3000 grit, and then I'll polish them on the polishing wheel. All the pieces for the handle except for the guard and pommel are hand sanded to 3000 grit and polished. So that's it for this video. In the next video, I'm going to add ropes to the guard and pommel. That's why I didn't sand those to the 3000 grit, because I want to etch like a rope design around the border of the guard and pommel. I think that'll help tie in the design on the blade to the handle. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you liked the video, please click the like button and subscribe for more videos. And if you have any questions, definitely leave a comment and I'll get back to you. Thank you.